While administering medicine to my constipated husband, I found his intestines filled with bows. I advised him to go to the hospital, but he claimed to have awakened a succubus physique. He kicked me and cursed me for getting involved with various powerful men. My husband is constipated again. I had to put down the underwear I was washing with a stern face and bring him the medicine. But this time, nothing worked. Seeing my husband's pitiful flushed face from the string, I reluctantly leaned over to take a look. Not looking would have been better, but one look was shocking. My husband's intestines had become a Cthulhu monster exhibition, and the shapes were surprisingly heart-shaped, full of a girly touch. These bows, out of place, made it impossible for the stool to pass through the intestines. What's more, it seemed like my husband couldn't hold back from having diarrhea. My husband might have contracted a venereal disease. I was shocked and anxiously urged him, "Go to the hospital quickly." "Get out, you stupid woman, you know nothing. Get out now." My husband, with shining eyes, couldn't wait to drive me out of the bathroom. I huddled outside the door, listening to the excited voice of my husband, coming from inside, becoming more and more alarmed as I listened. Great, it's finally my turn to awaken the legendary succubus physique. From today on, who can resist the charm of my Simon Hen suit pants? After my husband left the house, I found a pink card in the dirty coat he took off. It said the signs of awakening the succubus physique: the skin becomes fairer, the waist softer, and the body turns pink when moving, blooming into dazzling plum blossoms. The most important thing is that, like my husband, there will be exaggerated changes in the intestines. It turns out that in my husband's decadent circle, this setting is popular lately. But novels are just novels. In the real world, such a condition could only be hemorrhoids or genital warts. My husband is probably about to find out that while he awakens the so-called succubus physique, every time he goes out to indulge, he will vomit blood. Because a man who is unfaithful and acts solely with his lower body does not deserve to have a brain. And his constipation is also because he is becoming more and more like a colander with a flower-like mouth. As for why I know, it's because I was the one who administered the succubus potion. Originally, this potion wouldn't have taken effect if he had never cheated in his life. But he not only cheated, but also made me a fellow wife, so it's not my fault. I was born in a place called my village. The women in our village are possessed by succubi on the night of the full moon. These women possessed by succubi are mentally deranged and behave strangely, known as ping women. They need to be treated by men through a method called dragons playing with phoenix to expel the succubi, which is the ginkgo that cannot be eliminated in a woman's essence. But as time went on, the folk customs of our village gradually deteriorated. Compared to expelling succubi, the method of treatment has become the focus. The village head said that entertainment is necessary in a closed agricultural village. Otherwise, the villagers' mental health will be affected. So this behavior that separates the treatment method from the purpose of treatment has been tacitly approved in order to maintain basic moral constraints. The village head set a village rule that only at night can the Kuping ceremony be performed. At night, there are no outdoor lights in Maiva village. Men rely on the moonlight to illuminate the path to where the ping women are. Women have completely become unresisting playthings. Once they turn 18, even if there are no signs of being possessed by a succubus, they will be fed by men with a charm that induces possession by a succubus, losing control of their bodies and being forcibly turned into ping women. Half a year ago, my mother sacrificed herself to undertake Morkupin ceremonies on my behalf, and sent me out of the village. She asked me to choose a woman with good endurance to share the burden for the women in our family. But when my current husband, Simon Hen, gave my brother a cocktail with a charm, I changed my mind. Why should women always make things difficult for other women? Our village's rules have always clearly stated that succubi cannot possess men. It's just that people always take it for granted that succubi should be women. My husband, who went out to indulge at midnight, finally came back drunk and was sent back by a luxury car belonging to the rich and powerful. Just as he said, after awakening the succubus physique, he successfully seduced various powerful men. He condescendingly said to me, "Li Pinger, I have passed the personal inspection of the wealthy young master in the circle, and confirmed the awakening of the succubus physique. You are no longer a match for me. Let's get a divorce." I pretended to be pitiful and clutched his trouser leg, pleading, "Honey, why is it me? What did I do wrong? I can change anything for you." That dog of a man kicked me away impatiently and said coldly, "Everything at home is yours. Leave early." After speaking, he looked like he was afraid of being stuck by dogskin plaster and hurriedly left home. I sat on the ground looking at the dilapidated rental houses around me, feeling amused. What family property does this poor loser have? Suddenly, the latest model of the Apple phone I hid in the toilet cistern rang. "Have you found the right bottle, girl? The full moon is coming soon," came my mother's anxious voice from the other end of the phone. I casually fiddled with the newly applied nail guards and leisurely replied, "I didn't find a flat girl, but I did find a flat man." My mom said with difficulty, "What are you talking about? There are men in the village waiting for treatment. What's the use of bringing a man back? Do you think I don't have enough treatment sessions?" I chuckled and said, "Ordinary men won't do, but the one I found is a peerless flat man who has awakened the succubus physique. I've tried him out with someone who's been through many battles, and the effect is fantastic, irresistible." After a long silence, my mom finally realized the deep meaning in my words. "Daughter, the most poisonous is a woman's heart. You want to use poison to fight poison and wipe out all the men in the village, don't you?" "Yes, otherwise, why would I have humiliated myself to be a fellow wife? I was waiting for him to get on our family tree so he could suffer for the women in our family." After my mom hung up the phone, I quickly hooked my husband up with a luxury car. The car owner made a call, and the other end of the phone was noisy. "Where are you?" The male public relations person I hired to pretend to be a rich second generation explained helplessly, "Sister Ping, I'm at the hospital for a blocking shot. Your husband is really a walking biochemical weapon. In just half a month, many people in the circle have been hit." "That's the effect I want," I said with satisfaction. "Then quickly help me deceive him into the address I gave you. If it's done, the reward will be doubled." "Sister Ping, you are a bit underestimating my professional quality. I have arranged for someone to send him on his way before I went to the hospital." I nodded. Indeed, professional things need to be done by professionals. When it comes to fraud, you are more professional than me. Soon we colluded our testimonies. The male public relations man disguised himself as a wealthy young master in the circle and invited Simon Hin to visit his ancestral home in the countryside for a 3-day and 2-night birthday party. After the event, he promised to give Simon Hin 10 million as a reward. Simon Hin, seeing the money, indeed hesitated but agreed to attend the silver party. Unfortunately, Simon Hin will never know that once he went there, he would never come back. Simon Hin, unfamiliar with the road conditions in the luxury car, arrived later than me. I calmly made up and dressed up before coming to the village entrance. Not long after, Simon Hin got out of the car, cursing, "What a hellhole, it's bouncing and hurting my butt. Where is your young master? Why hasn't he come to accompany me yet?" I quickly stepped forward and explained, "My brother has some business to deal with at the company before the vacation. He will be here soon." You know men, they have to inherit the family business. The driver saw me. His eyes lit up. But Simon Hin, who had been with me day and night, didn't recognize me at all. Instead, he scrutinized me from head to toe and said sarcastically, a tasteless commoner, "Yes, usually at home, I'm just an unkempt, housework-obsessed yellow-faced woman." Besides, he never really looked at me carefully, did he? He always looked at me with a disgusted and impatient gaze. He married me just because I was easy to manipulate, had a weak sense of law, and was a suitable match to deal with the conservative elders in his family. After I sent the driver away, I took Simon Hen into the village. Initially, he was somewhat resistant to coming to the countryside, but when he saw the men in the village who were handsome in different ways, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Beautiful sister, my brother didn't tell me that your village is actually a male model village." But when his eyes caught sight of the gorgeously dressed, stunningly beautiful women, he grumbled in a low voice that there were just too many of them. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Simon Hen was right. Everyone in our village, regardless of gender, has a high level of attractiveness. After all, being good-looking certainly doesn't affect one's appetite when cooking. It's not the first time outsiders have come to the village. But before they were all women like me, who left the village to find a flat girl substitute. The last one was a bullying girl who was tricked into the village by Zelion from next door. A man from outside the village coming in is an unprecedented first time. At first, the men in the village looked at Simon Hen with a sense of caution, but when they smelled the familiar scent of the succubus potion on him, their faces showed a relieved expression. I was right in my bet. The village is isolated, and the villagers' acceptance and curiosity for entertainment is far beyond what the village head could imagine. Just waiting for the night of the full moon, when Simon Hen will call forth a great succubus that will be remembered in history, he will officially receive the unique frequency treatment from all the men in the village. Suddenly, Simon Hen stopped and grabbed my sleeve. "Why are the men in your village so strange, and do they all like to sneak peeks at me?" My heart skipped a couple of beats, but then the superficiality of Simon Hen's words put me back on guard. "Your village is really wealthy. Look at their hands. They all wear red coral bracelets of incalculable value. I like them all. Don't worry, there will be plenty in your grave later," I said, following Simon Hen's infatuated gaze. Sure enough, the men were wearing red coral bead bracelets on their wrists, and seeing us look, they didn't forget to lick their lips greasily as a hint. Simon Hen was particularly susceptible to this. He shyly instructed me, "Sis, you go tell them for me, if they want to look at me, let them look generously, they know I'm handsome." I strongly held back the urge to burst out laughing and took Simon Hen to the Coral Sea, where our village's sacred spring is enshrined. If the village head, as the manager of the village, is unwilling to accept the first flat man in the village, then we would be stopped here. Seeing no one guarding the sacred spring, I knew the village head had tacitly approved, and my heart finally settled. I filled a bowl with the crystal clear and cool spring water for Simon Hen. "You must be tired from walking. Have some water to quench your thirst. This is the village's custom. Everyone who comes for the first time must drink this water to greet the guests and wash away the dust from the journey." Simon Hen didn't want to go against my intentions. "This water is so fishy," he said, barely sipping a small amount before he couldn't help but spit it out. "That's natural. The breeding season is coming, and the water is full of coral sperm, released by the coral polyps, nourishing yin and yang, especially beneficial for men," I said. Hearing this, Simon Hen felt disgusted to the point of almost vomiting. No matter how I persuaded him afterwards, Simon Hen refused to drink any more. He had no idea that making him drink this water was not to harm him, but actually a good thing to sustain his last breath after being possessed by the demon, to prevent him from dying from excessive lust. At the same time, the diluted spring water also serves as a guide for the potion that induces the possession by the succubus. After he drank the sacred spring water, I took Simon Hen back home for dinner. My mother and younger brother were all already waiting at the door. It had only been half a year since I last saw her, but my mother, who bore the treatment meant for two, had aged considerably. My mother's aging was not just on the surface with her ridged and powdered skin. It was the decay seeping from within her very bones. The men in the village, to squeeze the last bit of vitality from women, would heavily dose them with medicine before their swift demise. As a result, the women in our village often become more enchantingly beautiful before death. Just like my mother now, whose skin seemed bewitched, exuding an alluring aura of fading vitality. "Oh, this is your brother." When Simon Hen saw my real brother and spoke up, I awkwardly explained that this is my second brother. As a child, he was weak and frail. The master said he needed to be raised in the countryside to nourish his life's fate. Fortunately, Simon Hen was dazzled by my brother's appearance and took the initiative to see himself, holding my brother's still sturdy arm. "This dear brother, I've heard that babies born when their parents are deeply in love are the most beautiful. Your parents must have been very much in love when they had you." After Simon Hen ate the drugged food and fell into a deep sleep in the room, looking at the increasingly bright moonlight outside, the three of us in my family gathered in the courtyard. It was time to go to the ancestral hall to enter the genealogy and perform the ritual of inviting the succubus to possess. Originally, when the time came, the succubus would automatically possess the village girls. But Simon Hen was not from our village before. Before that, we must first perform a ritual to enter the genealogy. Everything is ready. Let's go. I hold the red marriage certificate tightly in my hand and call everyone to leave. My brother hesitated and said, "Sis, is this really appropriate? I feel he's not that bad." My heart skipped a beat. My brother indeed looks honest, but he has wilder thoughts than anyone else. His words did not mean he truly pitied Simon Hen, but rather he was afraid that after Simon Hen attracted the succubus, too many men would compete with him, preventing him from enjoying himself fully. But Simon Hen is not an ordinary man. He is a biochemical weapon I found to destroy the village. After all, he's my own brother, and I decided to give him a final warning. I warned, "Control yourself. You must not touch this man, no matter what." My brother reluctantly responded, and I didn't know if he really took my words to heart. When we arrived at the ancestral hall for the genealogy ceremony, the village head, who was originally in charge of such rituals, did not come. The village head's daughter, Zillion David, explained that the village head was old and recently in seclusion for rest. It is not suitable for the villagers to have him around. With the marriage certificate in hand, after a few strokes, Simon Hen was added to our family genealogy. Both my mother and I showed a look of joy on our faces. Soon there was a strange noise in the sky. The clouds that obscured the moon dispersed, revealing a large bright moon hanging high in the night sky. As a meteor-like brilliant golden light pierced the night sky and fell onto the eaves of my house, all the men could not hide their excitement. Previously, the most powerful succubus possession in the village was no more than the upper grade of purple light, such as Pangilion on Zillion and Pangchun Mei on my mother. There was no other choice for the top grade succubus general. It could only be that one, the one who brought disaster to the country and the people and destroyed the Shang Tang dynasty, Su Shai. Alas, the men in our village will suffer in the coming year. The top grade succubus is not so easy to expel and treat. Originally, some men were still wary of the flat man, but now with the dodgy succubus possessing all the men, are only thinking about how they can take their turn quickly, having played the role of King Zhou of Shang to their satisfaction. I listened to the men around me who had taken advantage and were still pretending to be virtuous with their salivary words, and I only felt disgusted. It was only then that I noticed my brother had already disappeared into the crowd. The top grade succubus was indeed as legendary as its name, and when my mother and I rushed back home, the first thing I saw was my brother, coming down from the attic where Simon Hen lived, with a look of disgust on his face. I was so angry that I wanted to hit him for being such a gullible fool. Rushing to be the first to check the goods, unaware that it was a honey, coated trap set for all the men in the village. My mother stopped me. She leisurely said, "Let him be. There isn't a good man in this village. They're all rotten to the core." As my brother passed by me, he didn't forget to mock me. Originally, the order of the succubus possession was tight. It should have been you who was possessed first. You're just jealous because your husband is more favored by men. Then you are, he said, then went out to boast arrogantly. After my brother left, I sighed and told my mom that I was worried my brother would mess things up. Men always think with their lower bodies, and in just one day, the exquisite taste of the top-grade succubus had spread throughout the village. The men, concerned about the moonlight and the folklore, that the exorcism ritual could not be performed, did not come during the day. My mother and I diligently went to the sacred spring to fetch water, to nourish Simon Hen's body, fearing that his frail physique would not withstand. The night's ordeal and our plans would be in vain. Along the way, we met Zelion and politely inquired about the village head's health. But Zelion gave a sly smile and said, "You'll know. When the time comes, everyone has secrets, don't they?" As night fell, the moonlight poured down fiercely, just as I had expected. The men who had lined up for the exorcism ceremony at my house were in for a surprise. On the bed in the attic, covered by the quilt, was a life-sized body pillow. My brother and Simon Hen had disappeared. They had plundered the invaluable wild red coral from the village and planned to escape. Unfortunately, they underestimated the villagers' regard for the flat man possessed by the top-grade succubus. Zelion had been guarding there on the village head's orders. Even when my brother saw the yellow river, he didn't give up, clamoring, "There are so many poor women in the village. What's the harm in letting me take a flat man away?" Zelion immediately retorted, "How could the village rules allow you to make such a fuss?" Which won the support of the people. Just as the two were about to be caught red-handed and had no choice but to surrender, Simon Hen took off his pants and made a big fuss. He said, "I know all the secrets of your village now. I will castrate myself and never let you women gain the upper hand. I can never be with the women of your village and have children for you." As he spoke, Simon Hen picked up a brick and smashed it fiercely against his lower body, splashing blood onto my brother's face. Seeing his horrified expression, I was a bit worried. After this ordeal, my brother may never be able to endure it for the rest of his life. But Simon Hen seemed to have misunderstood it. Each village has its customs, and men give birth through their navel. You're talking about the customs of the neighboring Ningyun village, right? Someone come quickly to help. Zelion hurriedly ordered people to carry the severely injured and unconscious Simon Hen away. I patted my brother's shoulder, who was still in shock, and said, "We'll settle the score for your mischief later." I said that the Nanmo village, once full of handsome men, has become a succubus charmer. My husband, who had fulfilled his long-cherished wish, how could he suddenly change his mind and escape the village with a green sapling? It turned out that my foolish brother was behind this mischief, feeding him false truths, making Simon Hen believe that he was captured by the women of our village to do hard labor. No wonder he wouldn't drink the water from the sacred spring no matter how much we persuaded him before. Now that the truth is out, Simon Hen reluctantly became the succubus lord supported by the whole village. Without that thing, he has become more beautiful and has more of the succubus's demeanor. He lies on a top-grade red coral bed every day, living a luxurious life where he is served food and clothing at his beck and call. Although the men in the village each have their own handsomeness, after a while, Simon Hen also found it a bit unbearable. Today, he even took the initiative to drink the sacred spring water that my mother and I prepared for him. At the same time, the frequency of Simon Hen's hemoptysis was getting higher and higher, and now it has reached the point where he coughs up blood every time he has intercourse. It's just a matter of time before he starts frothing at the mouth. He's becoming more and more like a coolenderet with a flower-like orifice. The typical representative is the coral polyps that surround the mouth with little tentacles, which do nothing but eat and reproduce every day, all through the same orifice. Generally speaking, the stronger the succubus that possesses the body, the stronger the attraction. But at the same time, the soul and beastly fate of the possessed person will also be consumed more quickly. After all, the stronger the succubus, the more filth is often thrown at it, and the deeper the resentment it carries. Mortals find it hard to bear such a powerful karmic obstacle. The top-grade succubus on Simon Hen is too powerful. Following this trend, within 3 months, he will be exhausted, but fortunately, 3 months is enough for the cauliflower succubus poison on him to be sown into all the men in the village. Other men are getting married more and more frequently, but my brother only went once and never went again. After tasting the ultimate succubus, the men completely lost interest in the ordinary succubi possessed women in the village, completely losing interest, which in turn saved the women in the village from disaster. Of course, just in case, I quietly distributed blocking medicine to the flat women from outside the village. The cauliflower poison on Simon Hen is very fierce. Even though my brother only went there once, he was not immune. I looked at the hint of a cockscomb-shaped cauliflower appearing on my brother's neck. I wondered why, since he was just upstairs in my house, you hadn't gone to see him for so long. My brother leisurely said it was all your fault. He's no longer whole. It was only then that I realized in hindsight. It turned out that my brother was the one below, so he could be completely conquered by Simon Hen, who was once whole. That day, I was trying to sneak away the blood-stained handkerchief that Simon Hen had coughed up blood on. Since he wanted to see, I simply let go and let him look. Simon Hen looked at the blooded handkerchief in the iron basin, so enraged that he coughed up to more mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? The secret book clearly said that after awakening the succubus body, one could draw on others' essence to cultivate an immortality skill. Why am I becoming weaker instead? Tell me quickly, did you drug me? He staggered down from the bed and stopped me, asking what I was sneaking around doing, and if I was trying to harm him. Since he wanted to see, I simply let go and let him look. Honey, look at me carefully. I'm your most filial good wife. How could I bear to harm you? Simon Hen finally recognized me, his eyes bulging with anger, trying to scratch my face. But I gently blocked him, and he fell flat on his face. Simon Hen lay on the ground, took a while to recover, and then cursed me as a venomous woman. I shook my head, sorrowfully saying, Honey, I told you long ago. You should go to the hospital when you're sick. But you didn't listen, insisting that you had awakened the succubus physique, and even kicked me out, accusing me of having affairs with various powerful men. Simon Hen looked at the blooded handkerchief in the iron basin, so enraged that he coughed up to more mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? The secret book clearly said that after awakening the succubus body, one could draw on others' essence to cultivate an immortality skill. Why am I becoming weaker instead? Tell me quickly, did you drug me? As Simon Hen spoke, he tried to strangle me. I didn't dodge. In his current weakened state, he would tire to death before he could strangle me. Zelion seemed innocent, but in reality gave a cold smile. There's no village head anymore. You guys don't know yet, do you? My father is long dead. This is the old-fashioned village head. The reason why Simon Hen was able to be tacitly accepted as the permanent flat man of our village is because he was no longer around. The village head died in my mother's bed, stabbed to death by Zelion. This is the reason why my mother aged rapidly in the past 6 months. To kill the village head, she exhausted all her tricks. My mother and Zelion said to me, you have the courage to destroy the village. How could we be weaker than you? The worst is death. Anyway, in this village, being alive is not better than being dead. It's better to let go and fight. When the last person in the village was gone, we returned to the village. burning the deformed bodies of the men and the furniture in a huge fire. It seemed to completely eradicate the sins of this backward village. The men's ashes were burned pink, looking enchantingly poisoned by the cauliflower succubus into the bones. Simon Hen, who was fortunate enough to be possessed by the succubus, was not yet dead. He followed the pattern of extinction of being possessed by the succubus. The soul was completely consumed to eliminate the succubus. The anger of being historically stigmatized and humiliated as a wanton woman throughout history has devolved it into a nearly transparent light red coral worm, a creature without a brain. Without the ability to think, it lives only to reproduce as a cool lindred. With a mouth but no anus, eating in from where it expels. My mother asked me if I wanted to put it back into the coral sea. The coral reef in our village was all formed from the bones of women who were previously possessed by the succubus, cursed by men, and ground to death. Coral is formed from the collective skeletons left after the decay of countless coral polyps. The descendants of the coral polyps still live, in groups on the skeletons of their ancestors, breeding from generation to generation. I forcibly endured the nausea, pinched my nose, and took out the coral worm named Simon Hen from the crotch of the pants. Stained with a foul yellowish watermark, threw it on the ground, and slowly twisted it with my foot. It was crushed into a shoe print with burst juice. I lightly opened my lips and said he didn't deserve it. The women in our village were finally free. Before leaving the village, I came to the coral sea again. I dove into the sea, gazing at the red coral dyed by the blood of women, and expressed my gratitude over and over again. Perhaps here, the spirits of the women who were historically stigmatized and humiliated as wantons, and finally reduced to being at everyone's service, can really hear my prayers. That is why the senior who was most severely vilified is willing to condescend and possess Simon Hen, to take revenge on the men of our village, Emiiba village, a village that imprisons the spirits of the historically notorious wanton women. The calligraphy barrier in the village forces their spirits to serve men in the form of possessing succubi, atoning for their sins from generation to generation, simply because they are born wanton, do not abide by the moral code for women, and are available to everyone. Sudaji was a person from the Yusu country. The Buki Joshu mentions that after the Yusu tribe was attacked by King Zhou of Shang, the Yusu leader, in order to protect the interests of the tribe, decided to offer Daji to King Zhou of Shang. In fact, she was just a small political sacrifice, not the bewitching and cunning, loyal, and good-natured harming demoness rumored to be.